to another episode of Into the Track, where we dive deep into the creative processes behind Johnny Craven's music and explore the artistry that brings it to life. Today we have the honor of featuring a true legend in the world of music production and remixing, Philip Larsen. Philip is a Grammy Award-winning producer and mixer whose extraordinary career has seen him collaborate with some of the biggest names in pop and dance music. From production, mixing, and multiple official remixes for global icons like Kylie Minogue, Katy Perry, Lady Gaga, Moby, Ellie Goulding, and Britney Spears, to producing chart-topping hits for Soft Cell, which peaked at number 7 in the UK in May 2022. Philip's work has truly shaped the sound of modern music. His electro-based work with OMD, Erasure, Human League, Kim Wilde, and the B-52s, as well as producing tracks for international artists like Mylène Farmer and Swedish House Mafia, highlights his versatility. Notably, he co-produced Mylène Farmer and Moby's Slipping Away, which topped the French charts. And yes, you might have heard of Jenny, Ruin Our Friendship by Studio Killers, which boasts over 500 million streams and is certified US Gold, still going strong. But today, we're focusing on one of his latest works, a remix of Johnny Craven's debut single, Bleed. Philip will guide us through the intricate process of transforming the original song into a powerful remix, sharing his techniques and the creative decisions that bring the music to life. Get ready to step into the studio with Philip Larsen and discover the magic behind this remix of Bleed Graveyard Party Remix.
Hi guys, my name's Philip Larsen, and I'm just going to talk you through some of the things I did as part of my remix of Bleed. It's a great song, really powerful, as I'm sure you agree. And here I've got a screen grab just showing you my project, basically, as I had it. For me, the key was all about the chorus section, or what I would call the chorus section, the Bleed part that Johnny sings with so much power and is such an effective part of the mix. So just to remind you of what that sounded like, I will play you the final mix version of the choruses before it was mastered, so you'll get the idea of what it sounded like. So really powerful record, and everything's there really, but I wanted to take this mix in a slightly different direction. You may have noticed that was a bit faster than the original version, and so I sped things up to 127 beats per minute just to give it a bit more of a break feel. Going back to perhaps some of the great breakbeat records of the 90s, but just to give it a modern twist. So sticking on the same section that I was just playing there, I more or less kept the structure of the original record, just kept, maybe I extended the end so the chorus was a bit longer, but if I just mute the vocals for a second, you'll hear the section now, the same section, as after I'd remixed it. So you hear lots of break beats, lots of power, a more of a breakbeat kick pattern, which you can hear here. I wanted to keep the flavor of the original, the groove of the original, but just take it into a bit more of a rolling feel. So you can hear with the kick drum, for example, and then I added a loop. Unashamedly referencing a bit of Prodigy, perhaps, as as you can see from the loop title. But also, no self-respecting break record wouldn't have the Amen break in there. This is a chopped up version, but as you can hear, it gives it an extra roll. So it really gives it the power that you want. But the thing is, it's not just a question of putting the break underneath and leaving the rest of the record in there, because I actually did keep the guitars, although I used the same guitar section I did some pre-production on this record, so I used the same guitar section, which is a bit more chopped up than it is in the final record. Which is great for the purposes of this remix. It gives it some more flow and just makes everything a bit more edgy. But I wanted to also make sure that when the vocals are in, that there's a counterpoint to the vocals. So it's like whenever Johnny says bleed, there's an answer back, and there's a crash on the bleed with him. So you have the power of that, but then also these couple of quite noisy samples so it becomes like a call and answer, as you'll hear here. I'm gonna make you bleed. So here it gives a real aggression and real power. So when you throw it all together, you have the vocals and those new drum parts with the original guitar and bass. Actually, the original bass sub, you can see here, I took out the live bass but just kept the sub in and turned it right up, so it's really loud and gives it the bottom end that you need from a record like this. So you hear that section, that's all quite effective. And the other thing I wanted to work on was just to keep, because this song has so many different parts to it and so many different movements, essentially. Some are quite straightforward, and I stuck quite close to the original, like the break section at the end here. You can hear that. I don't need to play that now, but you can hear that in the record. It's fairly close to the original. I just kept the breaks rolling, but more importantly, I wanted to make a drop down verse section, and because otherwise it's just non-stop, and I think for a remix it's good to have a bit of diversity and a bit of night and shade, so it drops down and it builds up again. So here I'll take the vocal out again, and you can hear what happened here after the chorus. So here's some standard sort of ideas of just bringing things down a bit into the verse. So the big heavy Amen break here coming in as we get out of the second half of the chorus, should we say, or the verse. I'm not quite sure what to call it. Second chorus, first verse. But this coming into this section here is where I wanted to add a real drop and atmosphere. So there was a great synth part already there from the original, but I turned it up because obviously being more of an electronic record now than a rock record in the remix, some of these synth parts could become much louder, and you'd be surprised how many synth parts there actually were, especially with some of the post-production that was then after I was involved, and there's some great synth parts in here, but then I added some bass. So I just put all the synths in. You'll hear how much is going on without the guitars even. And so I just let it run a bit there, so you can hear all the synths and what I call the dead mouse, which actually isn't a dead mouse, but it's I've always been such a big fan of dead mouse anyway. But the what I mean by dead mouse eighths are these sound like you might remember from the Cascade record. I remember that he did with Cascade, and there's this sidechain pulsing kind of bass line, and it's basically, as you can see, coming off Silence. But it's a sound I made up that has a sort of fifth harmony in it, so it gets it's a really hard sounding bass part. So combine that with the other synth parts that are already in there and some new extra acid that I put in, you get all these electronic elements that you can now add in with a sort of more EDM like builds, which I think all gives it the power, which you then of course combine with still the guitar, which is still playing, as you can see, almost all the way through the record, still the original guitar, which gives it that power and keeps the reference to the rock that it needs to have, and the heavy sound of Bleed as its record is. So if I play you this section here, I think you get a sense of, without the vocals, just so you get a sense of how it flips into this kind of more almost slightly dancey section before it then goes back to the Bleed chorus. So moving on to this middle break section here of the record, again I wanted to add some real dynamic, and there's so many vocal parts and great production that we worked on already when we did the pre-production, and the band had recorded most of them already anyway. But there's this huge amount of vocals going on. All giving this incredible background to the record and real attention to detail, which is great. But to then, I thought rather than just slamming it along, we drop it down a bit, so you hear the effect here. It's all part of the idea of that when you get to the final chorus, there's this huge big build, just as it's like a little drop before it goes in, and then it slams in for the final time. Anyway, I hope you agree that it's effective. It's been great fun working on this remix. Some ideas I haven't used for many years that I wanted to bring back in, and I think it feels really fresh. It's such a great song, great vocal, and hopefully you will enjoy the remix. Thank you.